say hello, everybody. Joshua here with the Veriheal team, and I have the wonderful Tami Wahl joining us today. Today we wanted to chat about some issues, policies, things going on around the political climate. Of course, we're in the lovely Washington, D.C. So, Tami, thank you so much for sitting down.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So, if you could, I guess, give our listeners a little background about yourself and sort of how we're sitting here today.
Well, my career, I have a couple decades on you, but I started as in private work. I was an attorney down in Austin, Texas, and I was doing criminal defense work for the first 10 years of my career. And then I pivoted and started doing more nonprofit, working with complementary modalities, and that just evolved into working with botanicals. And then I started working with companies trying to bring products to market in the FDA world. All natural products, and so whether I was in-house or general counsel for certain companies, and that just continued to grow into the cannabis space. And so a handful of years ago, I took a deep dive and worked on the state level, putting together best practices for the state legislatures to incorporate into their cannabis programs. And then 2 years ago, I pivoted and just focused on the DC conversation, the federal conversation, because that's where the industry is now.
Wow. What was that transition like, going from dealing with the botanicals and the natural things and then deciding, you know what, I'm going to start dealing directly with marijuana, medical marijuana? What was that transition like for you personally, and then on the business side as well?
Well, personally, so I don't consume, and I'm not a patient. So working with cannabis and being raised in the 70s and the 80s, I firsthand experienced the
I thought you were 90s baby. Wait a minute.
Yes, it's the lighting. It's definitely the lighting.
Yes.
Yeah, but so I was a product of the egg in the frying pan about what drugs do to you, and everything around cannabis, all the rhetoric and the dogma around cannabis, and so it was taboo when I was first introduced to it. Fortunately, I've been working with other plants with therapeutic properties, and so I knew the benefit of plants. And then once I really got into it and started having conversations with people that have been in the cannabis space for decades, I understood how we got where we are.
Sure.
For example, the United States Pharmacopoeia, that when that started, when our country came to be, that was our go-to for medicines. And there were hundreds of botanicals in there, and now we're down to, 10. So just this progression with our country, and that we used botanicals as medicines, and then we entered into a traditional pharmaceutical world, and we're slowly but surely getting back into using plants, plant-based food, plant-based medicines.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Oh.
And so
I'm at Trader Joe's every weekend.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And they love you for it.
Yes.
TJ's, good old TJ's. So so that was my personal journey into it, and now because I'm immersed in it, that just seems like such a foreign, just so long ago, that when I was like cannabis, marijuana, and now it's very. When I step out of my conversation and people have the reaction like cannabis, to me it catches me off guard, because the industry is here, it's regulated, and we're bringing quality products to the market.
That's awesome. And your story specifically is special because we run into a lot of business people who have just started, or they're trying to start, and they constantly reach out like, hey, we want to get involved in the cannabis industry, we don't know where to start. And sometimes they're a little nervous, or just about kind of just going out and getting it. So hearing other people who have, for their own person, not like your boss or somebody else told you have to do this, you decided, hey, I'm going to tackle this issue, or I'm going to jump in and start becoming an advocate and help other people. That's always so wonderful to hear. What advice would you give, I guess, people who are on the fence about also getting involved, and maybe they're like, we're worried that the federal government might punish everybody who's in the business, or anybody who helps them, or even your involvement with the DOJ. What is the climate like there in terms of relative to business people and individuals as well looking to get involved in the industry?
If anyone has either an entrepreneurial spirit, or if they have a hankering to get into a hyper-growth, very exciting industry, I encourage them to explore and have conversations with as many stakeholders as possible. The fact of the matter is, cannabis is one of several other industries, whether it's the other disruptive industries, the Airbnbs, the Ubers and the Lyfts that are disrupting how we move from point A to point B. And if you look at it in that broader concept, it's a disruptive industry, and we're making it better for the consumer, economic development, and the list goes on. So if you don't, even though the cannabis plant in and of itself has had a very interesting journey, if you look at it in the context of what else is going on in our world right now, I think you lose some of that trepidation, and you just, because the global climate, what's going on in the States right now, it's begging you to come on in.
Sure, I love it. Well, perfect. The last question I have is, looking forward, as a person who doesn't actually use cannabis, which is very cool as well, what would you like to see the industry grow to maybe 10 or 20 years from now, in terms of people's access to it, and also in terms of being able to actually utilize the medicinal sides of it to the full benefit as well? Where would you like to see things go in the future?
Well, excellent question. And in part because the industry is mature enough now where we are seeing what we call big money coming into the conversation. And with that, you compromise quality. You can, not always, but you can compromise quality. You push out the people that have been literally in the trenches for decades trying to get the plant, trying to liberate the plant, make sure that people have access to the plant. And so I'm in it for the long haul. It is about respecting the plant, building integrity into the regulated industry, and making sure that we have a place in the global market as much as we do for the individual states that have taken the risk right now, and the tremendous pushback from, such as the DOJ, or whether it's with Treasury dealing with financial institutions. So all the states in our country right now that have listened to the people in their states and have said, you know what, we're going to listen to them, we're going to put in these programs, they're willing to take that risk so that they can reap those rewards as long as possible, and somehow still balance innovation so that we're not just rolled over by the big money. And I'm not, all big money is not bad, but we need to remember the individuals and the smaller players that have brought the industry to where it is today.
Absolutely.
So whatever that framework, that regulatory framework looks like on the federal level, it needs to wrap in all those components, and probably most important, just because I am a botanical advocate, we really need to treat the plant with respect, and that's dealing with supply chain integrity, making sure that we're not exploiting the plant, that the intended uses of the plant are backed either by science or traditional use evidence, and we're just not going to put cannabis on another trajectory of what we're trying to recover from the last 100 years.
Wow. That's awesome. That was the best question. That's perfect. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for your time. And if you guys have any questions about, botanicals, policy, Minnesota, she's one of Minnesota's best.
That's right. Well, I don't know about that.
We'll put her information in the video below as well so you can get contacted. And again, thank you so much for your time. We'll high five it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.